Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well and having a great day. So for today's video, I'm actually going to be filming a really personal one. I'm going to be filming a Q&A about social anxiety. So I've asked you guys over on my Instagram to ask me any questions about social anxiety in general, like my tips, my experiences, like any advice, just any questions that you have about social anxiety. And you guys have asked loads of great questions, so I'm just going to get into it and start answering them. So someone's asking, what sort of situations trigger your social anxiety most? So there is a large list of them. Thinking back to when I was younger, the main thing was school. I really hated going to school just because I worried about teachers like calling on me in class, asking me for an answer and me not knowing the answer, and then my face going bright red because everyone's looking at me waiting for me to give them an answer when I don't know the answer, and then I feel stupid. I feel like everyone's thinking, wow, she's so dumb. So school was the main thing when I was younger that made me feel really anxious, but also just being around anyone that wasn't like within my household. So say even like we went and visited other family members, I just wasn't very comfortable around. Just anyone that was outside of my close family, like that wasn't my parents or my siblings basically. I was always very clingy to my mum, like she was my security blanket. I always felt safest when I was with her because, you know, she would handle conversations and I could sort of just, you know, hide behind her almost. So say for example if she was talking to someone that she bumped into in the street, and that person then, you know, asked, "Oh Lucille, how's school going?" I hated that because then, you know, all of their attention then focused on me and I just wouldn't know what to say and I'd panic and I'd just be like, yeah, good, and I just couldn't think of anything else to say. But now focusing more on like my current life now that I'm grown up, also I just want to say that when I was younger everyone said, oh, it's something you'll grow out of, it's just like you're shy, you're just a kid, you know. Yeah, you don't grow out of social anxiety, it's not just shyness. But yeah, now in my everyday life as an adult, the things that trigger my social anxiety most is going to work. I find really difficult. Thankfully the job that I'm in now is the one that I feel most comfortable in, but still, you know, every day is a massive challenge and you know, it's not easy. I feel like for anyone with social anxiety, places like school, college, uni, the workplace, like those are your biggest fears, because you have to be around new people all the time, and then even when you get used to those people and they're not new people anymore, like for people with social anxiety it doesn't matter like how long you've been in a job, how long you've known a person for, just sometimes it just doesn't get easier. Like for me, I can't be myself around anyone else other than my close family, and you know, it's not a choice that I've made. I wish that I could be comfortable around other people and just be my silly stupid self that I am, like, and just not care what other people think, because I can be like silly and goofy around like my family but no one else. Everyone else I'm just very silent around and I just don't say anything. I can't think of what to say. Even if I can think of something in my head that I think, oh, maybe that's some conversation that I can make, I overthink it so much that I talk myself out of saying it, so that I just remain completely silent. So things like having my break and having my lunch at work terrify me. Like, yeah, I look forward to my break because I'm like, oh, I can, you know, relax for a bit, get some food. But then if I walk into the staff room and it's really crowded, I get anxious because I think, oh my gosh, I need to make conversation, like I'm just really scared. But then sometimes like if I walk into the staff room and there's just like one or two people, I can still get anxious because I feel like, oh, then there's less people, so then I feel like I need to make even more conversation. So then sometimes when it's busier, maybe that's better because I can fade into the background more and maybe not have to make so much conversation. But this is basically what goes through your mind when you have social anxiety. It's like your brain never stops, you overthink everything, your thoughts go at like 1,000,000 miles an hour and basically convince you that everyone thinks badly of you, everyone is judging you. So then outside of work, things that make me feel anxious are going to the shop. I mean, I have to say that I much prefer like going to the shop now that we have like self-service checkouts and things like that. Those are like the best thing that could have ever been invented for people with social anxiety. But like if you go to a shop where that's not an option, it is scary. Like standing in the queue, you're thinking, oh my gosh, what are they gonna ask me? Like what happens if they ask me a question about how's my day? So you sort of like start preparing a speech in your head whilst you're in the queue. It sounds ridiculous, I know, but it's what you do. You think of everything that they may possibly say or ask, and then you prepare your answers in your head, and then you run it over and over again in your head, just to make sure that you get it perfectly. And then when you finally get to the front of the queue, they ask you, oh, how are you today? And your mind completely like goes blank, you freeze, and then you say something stupid. Well, that's basically what happens with me. And then you'll go home, and then you'll overthink that, not just for a couple of hours, but for probably like weeks and weeks on end. So basically just going anywhere, like going to the shop, if I have to go to the post office. Like the other day my boyfriend asked me to go to the chemist for him to pick something up for him. I felt like avoiding it, but then I didn't want to because I knew that I needed to get this prescription for my boyfriend. So like the amount of like encouragement that took for me to go and do that, and for me to like keep persuading myself, I had to keep like pushing myself just to go to the chemist. And then again, it's the same thing. I'm standing in the queue, I'm going over in my head like what I have to say. I'm like, hi, I'm here to pick up a prescription for, like that's what's going on in my brain. Ordering food in a restaurant really terrifies me. Again, I rehearse my order. I used to actually just like ask a family member to say my order for me, but then, you know, I think like my mum realised that she needs to like start pushing me out of my comfort zone and not always doing everything for me, because you know eventually a time would come where I was grown up and I'd have to do these things by myself. So yeah, things like that. Going to the drive-through, again I'll rehearse my order. Phone calls I absolutely hate. Again, that was something that my mum always used to do for me, but then again she obviously realised that as much as, you know, you want to help someone with social anxiety by trying to make their life easier, sometimes if you do everything for them, like they're never gonna push themselves out of their comfort zone, and they're never gonna face their fears. So for someone with social anxiety like me, sometimes in the moment I could think to myself like, why is my mum doing this to me? Like she could easily just phone and make an appointment for me because it's way easier. She knows how much like this stresses me out, how anxious I get, how nervous I get. I don't understand why she's making me go through this. But now, like when I look back in it, I'm like, it's not because my mum hated me, like it's because my mum loves me, that she was trying to like help me, but I didn't really see it like that in the moment. But yeah, if you have social anxiety and you feel like your friends or like your parents or anyone is like pushing you, it's because they want to help you get better. So just know that they love you and that they care about you, and that they do these things to help you. They do these things to push you out of your comfort zone, so then when you're like made to do that, you're made to make that phone call, you know what, afterwards it feels amazing. Like you feel like you've accomplished so much, and yes, it may be something so small to someone else, but to you, like that's a massive accomplishment and you should be so proud of yourself. So yeah, like looking back in it now, I'm like, thank you so much, mum, for helping me, even though I didn't see it like that at the time. Other things that trigger my social anxiety is going to parties, like events, just social situations basically. I hate public speaking. I literally would make myself sick for weeks and weeks on end whenever I knew that I had a presentation to do in school or that. I absolutely hate being watched whilst I'm doing something. So say for example when like I start a new job and I have to be trained, but I have someone like watching me to make sure that, oh, I know how to use a till, or I know how to use this. I absolutely hate that. I also get very anxious around authoritative figures. So like in school it was teachers, in work it's like managers and bosses and things like that. Just people with authority, they really make me anxious and nervous. Basically it's just anything that involves people, like meeting new people, being around big groups of people. But then again, like it could even be like a little group of people that I'm not familiar with or I don't really know. That is also very triggering. having to make small talk, just not knowing what to say, just basically being around people other than like my very, very close family. So the next question is, have you got any tips for dealing with social anxiety? So I firstly want to say that I have got a long way to go when it comes to getting better. It's definitely a long process. There are times where I feel like I am making so much progress, and I feel like I've come a really long way. I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone a lot, and then like one thing can happen and it's like I'm all the way back to square one, because then, you know, I feel disheartened, I feel like I failed, that I'm never gonna get better. I feel like I didn't try hard enough. I start telling myself like I'm never going to be good enough, I'm never going to be normal, I'm never going to be able to be sociable or to hold a conversation. And it's then when I get into that negative mindset that I just start thinking like, oh, I'm never going to get better, I'm never going to improve. So yeah, it's a constant battle of trying to pick yourself up when things do go wrong. But in saying that, things don't go wrong, because everything like is a learning process. If you push yourself out of your comfort zone, no matter what happens, it's a learning experience. You've learned from it, you have grown in confidence, even though you might not think it, but just like even by doing it, that is like showing confidence. One of my biggest tips would be to challenge negative thoughts. So say for example, you are in a situation where you have to give a class presentation, and because you're so nervous and anxious, you're gonna have loads of thoughts whizzing around in your head. You're probably gonna have thoughts like, you're gonna mess this up, everyone's gonna laugh at you, you're gonna make a fool of yourself. So what I try to do when I have negative thoughts like that is I try to question those thoughts, because quite a lot of the time your thoughts aren't true and they aren't actually rational, and it's hard for you to see that when you're experiencing so much anxiety and so many different emotions. Like you're panicking, you're worried, so you can't think straight and you can't see that those thoughts aren't rational, so you just believe every thought that is going around in your head. So if you sort of just take a step back, take a breath and question that negative thought, just ask yourself, do I 100% know for sure that I'm gonna make a fool of myself? Do I 100% know for sure that people are gonna laugh at me? Do I 100% for sure know that people are gonna think I'm stupid, that they're gonna think this of me, that they're gonna think that of me? And I can guarantee that most of the time the answer is gonna be no, because you don't know for sure what other people are thinking. And that's another thing that people with social anxiety tend to do a lot, is they tend to think that they can mind read people, and it's again just that fear of being judged. They worry a lot about what other people think, and so they almost convince themselves that they know what other people think. So say for example you're at a party and there's like quite a big group of people and everyone's sort of chatting, and you start thinking like, oh my gosh, that person there, they think like I'm so boring because I'm not really saying anything, or they think I'm really weird because I'm so quiet. You have to then try and think, do I know this for sure? Like, am I a mind reader? Like, yes, they may possibly think that, but it's more the fact that when you're so anxious, you convince yourself that that is exactly what they're feeling, when for a fact you don't know like what they're thinking. Of course this is easier said than done, but definitely challenging negative thoughts and reminding yourself that you're not a mind reader, those are little things that could help. And I just want to say that everything that I say in this video is just my opinion and my advice. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong and that this will definitely help. Of course I would always recommend that you seek professional help, because obviously there are qualified doctors and people out there that actually know more about social anxiety and how to properly like help you get through it, but obviously these are just little bits of tips and advice. I think another good tip is to try and understand your anxiety the best that you possibly can. So I would definitely recommend keeping a journal for this. So writing down how you feel in certain situations and how you react in certain situations can be really helpful. So say one day you were in the queue for Starbucks waiting to order your food and drink and you felt really anxious. When you go home, write about it. Write about your exact feelings whilst you were standing in that queue. What was going through your mind? What were your thoughts? And it really helps to get your thoughts down on paper, and it also just helps you to understand more of what's going on in your brain. So then you can sort of see, okay, I was feeling like this because of that, and then this happened as a result of that. So in the future, how can I sort of make this easier for myself and help myself to get better in those situations in the future. So you could be like, I felt really anxious about ordering my food, but maybe it would have helped if I wasn't alone, so next time I'm going to take someone with me. So it's all about just taking little steps to get yourself to where you want to be. So, you know, next time you might take a friend with you, and then you could write about whether that helped or not, and you know, you might find that yes, you felt a little less anxious, it was nicer having someone there to talk to in the queue, it helped as a distraction. And then the following week you could maybe say to your friend, how about you wait at the table whilst I go and order food, so you know, I know that you're there, so that's a comfort, but you know, it's me taking another big step in trying to overcome my social anxiety. So yeah, just keep on taking those little steps, keep on pushing yourself that little bit further each time, and eventually you know, you will be where you want to be. But it's obviously not going to be like, oh, day 1 I was anxious, day 2 I was a little bit anxious, day 3 I'm not anxious at all, it's gone. Like, obviously it's going to be a long process of years and years and years, and you may find that you take a step and you feel like it's just too much, and that's okay. You can go back down to the previous step and just, you know, you've got to know when to push yourself. Like, yes, it's important that you push yourself out of your comfort zone, but you don't want to push yourself too far too quickly. It is a very slow process, so just take as much time as you need with it. It's all about breaking down challenging situations into smaller parts and dealing with those smaller parts individually. So don't try to take on too much at once, just tackle a little bit at a time, and nothing is too small. Like, you don't need to do everything in a oneer, just take it little bit by little bit. Also, I forgot to mention another great thing about journaling is that when you document all of your thoughts and feelings, it helps you recognize like how much you've improved, but it also helps you realize when you're like falling back into old habits and negative thinking patterns. And that's something that's really helping me, because like I said, when I do push myself to go to a social event and, you know, things don't go as well as I wanted them to, I can sort of fall back into old patterns and just like fall back into my comfort zone almost, because yeah, that freaked me out, so I don't want to do that again. But you know, documenting that just makes you realize like, no, you don't want to just, you know, hide away from your fears. Yes, it was scary, but you did it, and that's amazing, so congratulate yourself. And that's another massive tip. You need to recognize your achievements, and you need to be proud of yourself when you take even the littlest of steps. So if you say yes to a party, like that in itself is amazing. So don't like expect too much of yourself. Recognize that saying yes to a party, going through with it and actually being there, like even if you feel uncomfortable, even if you hate every second of it, you have done an amazing job. So you don't need to like be hard on yourself and think, well yeah, I was at the party but I didn't say much, or I didn't speak to anyone. Like, recognize what you have done and what you've achieved by just going there and being present. Another thing that I think really helps is breathing exercises. So there was a few times in my previous job where I felt really anxious on the shop floor, and I would sort of just have to take myself off the shop floor and just go to the bathroom and just give myself just a couple of minutes to just focus on my breathing. And it really does work, it really does help. So just take that time for yourself to focus on your breathing, and yeah, definitely look up some YouTube videos on good breathing exercises to help with anxiety and stress, because I cannot recommend them enough. And also something that really helps for me is things like meditation and ASMR. Like, I enjoy doing them at night, and I feel like that's helped so much, especially when it comes to overthinking, because a lot of the time if I'm feeling anxious and stressed about something, I find it difficult to get to sleep. So I feel like meditation really just helps me to de-stress and relax and clear my mind. So a lot of people have asked, how do you get through college or work when you have social anxiety? So what I'd say for that is, what is most important is that you keep showing up, that you keep on being present, because that in itself is such a massive challenge for people with social anxiety, and a lot of people don't realize that something so simple for someone else can take so much energy and strength. You know, some days it's difficult to find that inner strength to force yourself out of bed and to force yourself to go to work or to go to college, because it's a place that makes you feel very anxious. So forcing yourself to go to work every day, to show up to college, wherever it is, that is a massive achievement, because you are facing your fears. You're doing something that terrifies you. So congratulate yourself for doing that. A big fear of mine when it comes to places like school and work is making conversation with people. So I would definitely recommend that you at least try every day to, you know, recognize people and just greet them just by saying hello. And that sounds like something so small and something so simple, but it can be very difficult for someone with social anxiety. So even if you are able to do that every single day, that's incredible. And I remember that my mum gave me this advice when I was in my first job, because I always got very anxious and nervous about lunch times when I'd have to be in the staff room. I just felt really bad, because I thought that people who were on the same lunch as me were thinking like, oh great, I'm stuck with a seal, I'm gonna have no conversation, this is gonna be a very boring lunch hour for me. So I would go home and I would tell my mum about how I was feeling, and she would tell me that as long as every day I made small talk, that was all that mattered. So she said, even if one day all you say is, oh, really nice weather, yeah, it sounds cringy, I know, it's small talk, but I've said something. She would say to me, even ask someone like how their weekend was, and as long as you've done that, you have made effort. And it might seem to that person that you've not really made that much effort, but for someone with social anxiety, that takes a lot to be able to do that. And I cannot explain how mentally exhausting it is for someone with social anxiety to make conversation with someone. Like, I see myself a lot of the time coming home from work and just being so mentally drained. Like, I'm exhausted just from having to like come up with conversation. It comes so naturally to other people, but for someone like me, it's just, it really is, I cannot explain it in words, but you just come home from work and you're just exhausted, not even like physically, it's just like mentally, it's so difficult. So yeah, my mum would just give me great advice, and she'd tell me, you know, just ask them how their weekend was, or ask them what their plans are for this evening. My mum would always say, ask them questions. That really helps, because then you just have to think of the question to ask, and then, you know, you can just listen to what they're saying. And a lot of the time, people with social anxiety are very good listeners, so ask a lot of questions and then the pressure's off you for talking and you can just listen, which is what you're good at doing. My battery just ran out of charge because I've been talking for so long, but I am back, and the next question is, my friend has social anxiety, what's the best way to be supportive and help? First of all, I think that you have an amazing attitude towards it already. It's so lovely that you want to be supportive and help your friend, and your friend is very lucky to have you. So just know that by being there for your friend, you're already doing an amazing job. So definitely just let them feel the way that they're feeling without making them feel guilty. So if they're crying, just let them cry, like don't question it. If they're overreacting, like don't call it out and say like, oh, like you're overreacting, like your thoughts are so irrational, like that's never gonna happen. Because yes, their fears probably sound unrealistic to you, but to them, like, they are real fears and they are real feelings that they cannot control. So yeah, don't make them feel guilty for how they're feeling, because they're not in control of it. And don't dismiss any of their feelings as irrelevant just because, you know, they're very unrealistic to you. It's really important that you let them know that you are there for them, that you're not gonna judge them, and it's also really important that you are patient with them, so don't expect too much from them too soon. So when your friend is feeling anxious, it's a good idea to try and distract them. So, you know, ask them if they want to play a board game, if they want to go out for a walk, if they want to watch a movie. A lot of the time when I'm feeling anxious about a social situation, Michael will try and take my mind off things, and he'll suggest that we go for a walk or that we do something fun together. And it's just really nice to know that that person cares, and it's also a really good idea to distract yourself from all of those negative feelings that you're having, and it can just help you feel a little bit more calm. Like I said earlier with my mum, who always you know, encouraged me not to hide from social situations, so she would, you know, try and push me out of my comfort zone. So it's really important that you encourage your friend to avoid hiding from social situations, and that you recognize the small steps that they are taking and the progress that they're making, and also let your friend know that you are proud of them when they do push themselves out of their comfort zone, and also make sure that you let them know that you're proud of them even when they don't meet their goals, because even by, you know, making those steps, they're already doing so much. So yeah, it's nice to hear from like your friends or your family that they are proud of you, because a lot of the time we are our own worst critics, so it's really nice hearing from someone else that they are really proud of you, and it's a massive confidence boost. The next question is, how do you deal with job interviews? Now this one seems quite obvious, but when it comes to a lot of things, being prepared is literally one of the best things you can be. You kind of know what you're going into, you know more of what to expect. So if you prepare yourself, you know, you research the company, you know, like your facts, you sort of prepare interview questions, so then if like an interview question comes up, it's not gonna throw you, you're gonna have like some idea of what you want to say. That definitely makes me feel more at ease. And I'm not saying that by doing this you're not going to feel anxious at all. Like, for someone without social anxiety, a job interview is a scary thing as well, so they're going to experience nerves to some extent as well. Like, pretty much everyone experiences nerves when it comes to a job interview, but obviously with social anxiety you've got those normal nerves, but then you've also got the nerves of just like everything else that scares you, so the whole like social aspect of it as well, and meeting new people, like there's a million things added to that. So I've had 3 jobs since I was 16, but I've been on about 5 job interviews, and a great tip that I've learned is to ask a lot of questions. So first of all, it shows that you are really keen, but what I've actually learned is that it actually takes some of the pressure off you. Typically an interview is an employer asking you loads of questions. It feels like you're on the spot, you feel like intimidated, and it can be a scary experience. Think of it as this: they're interviewing you to see if they want to hire you, but you are also interviewing them to see if you want to work with them. So then that sort of takes off the pressure, and doesn't just make you feel like you're the only one that's on the spot. And like I said previously, that's something that I do when I am trying to hold a conversation with someone. I try and ask them lots of questions. So likewise, do that in an interview. It takes all of the pressure off you, and you don't have to speak as much because you just have to think of a couple of questions and then they're going to talk a lot of the time. So yeah, that's something that I found really useful. Another tip that I would give is take your time. You do not have to answer every question straight away. You're allowed time to think. And I remember on my first interview, my first job interview that I ever went to, I was only 15 when I went for the interview, and I was terrified. And I remember when I was asked a question in the interview, and my mind just went blank and I could not think of anything, not even to do with the question. I just couldn't think of anything because I was so nervous that just my mind went absolutely blank and I just didn't even know what I was trying to think of. I forgot about what even the question was and I was panicking so much. And I remember the woman just saying to me like, oh, it's okay, take your time, and then she was like, I can repeat the question. And at the time I just thought to myself, I've made the biggest fool of myself, like I'm never getting this job, like they must be laughing so hard at me inside. And I ended up getting the job, and it wasn't until I look back in it and I just think like, you know what, that woman was so right. Like I'm sure she's interviewed so many people and that has happened like a million times. It's very normal for you to have a mind blank, not just in an interview but like in any situation. It's a normal human thing to do, so don't feel worried about your mind going blank in an interview. If the person interviewing you is a nice person, then they're gonna understand that you're nervous and that these things do happen. And when the interview ends, congratulate yourself because you went there, which is amazing in the first place. You got through the interview, you did it, you made it out the other end. Like, you've done a pretty awesome job. So no matter what happens, if you do or you don't get the job, it doesn't matter because the interview in itself has been a learning experience. I've learned something from each interview that I've been to, and I've taken something from each interview which has helped me get better at interviews that I have done after that. So you definitely do learn from doing them. So it's like most things, the more you do it, the better you will get at it, and the more comfortable you will feel when you are in an interview. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't find interviews easy, like, still, and I don't think I ever will, but compared to like my first ever interview to my last interview that I was on, like, there's definitely been an improvement. Like, I've still definitely been extremely nervous on all of my interviews, but I've learned things over time, and I've learned to deal with my feelings of anxiety during job interviews a bit better. So I realised that I've only answered a few questions, but this video has been really long. I was expecting it to be, because when it comes to things like mental health, I find it difficult to just give like one-word answers, and I really wanted this video to be as informative and as helpful as I could possibly make it. So I really hope that this video helped at least one of you guys out there. And if you are watching this and you have social anxiety and you feel like this video was helpful, please let me know in the comments down below if you want me to film part 2 where I answer some more of your questions, because there was still a load of questions that I didn't get to answer that I feel like maybe me answering them could be helpful to you guys. I just want to say, if you are struggling with mental health, whether that be anxiety, depression, an eating disorder, OCD, whatever it is, please know that you are not alone and that there are people who want to help. So please reach out to someone, whether that be a parent, a sibling, a friend, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, whether that be me. If like you're watching this video and you feel like you have experienced some of the things that I've talked about in this video, and you want someone to talk to that understands it and understands how it feels, then you can message me. Like, feel free to message me on Instagram or anything. Like, if I can do anything to help, then I want to be able to do that, because I know that one of the worst feelings is when you're going through something and you feel like nobody else understands. And yeah, feel free to start a discussion in the comments if there's anything you want any help or advice on. Just be kind to each other in the comments, and I hope you're having a great week, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!